Hello, my name is Elizabeth and I'm an illustrator. I love creating illustrations that are funny, and what we'll be doing today is just having a little bit of fun and creating some dinosaurs that we think of, pull down from our imagination. They won't be based on any kind of realistic drawing at all. I will be creating something with just ordinary paper. You don't need special paper for this because at the end we'll be colouring it in. We're using pencil and texter or a marker, depending on where you are in the world. You will also need to draw your illustration. So can I suggest a pencil and an eraser? I won't be using the pencil and eraser, and the reason for that is my drawing needs to show up on camera. So you'll see me using a pen, but can I highly recommend that you stick with a pencil and then an eraser, and when you're happy with your drawing you can actually go over it with a pen. Okay, but I have to do it first time. So I've got a pen here that has a thick line, and I have another pen that will have a very thin line, and I'll be using that to create some shadow marks or lines on the illustration. Okay, so let's get started, shall we? So here I am with my paper, and all of it hopefully is on camera. I've been practicing today and I keep drawing things off camera, so let's hope I do well right now. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to have a bit of a practice. Practicing is always a good idea because it means that you can get your ideas down on paper and make some choices, and you don't get too worried about making mistakes. Okay, so if I think about a dinosaur and I'm having a bit of fun, I might start by drawing one that's a bit pointy nose. So here we go. What do you reckon about that? Now, when I draw animals, I generally, if that's the nose, I find that if I draw the bottom jaw halfway along from the nose, it kind of looks funnier. So if I was to show you on another page, it's kind of interesting, but I think this often looks a bit funnier when you have this kind of mouth. Now I'm going to leave a space up here because I know I need to go back and do the eye. I'm going to come around, and this is going to be the dinosaur's neck. Okay, now that's a pointy snouted dinosaur. What if we want to explore and maybe go into a bit more fantasy here? What if we had a dinosaur that was a bit like an elephant seal? They have really interesting long wobbly noses. Again, I'm going to be doing that lower jaw halfway along, and up I go, leave a space for the eye, and around, and there's the neck. So that's an interesting looking dinosaur. I'm sure they didn't really exist, but interesting to think about. And then our third dinosaur today, I thought maybe I have a cold, and so maybe this dinosaur also has a cold. Big nose, big red nose from too much sneezing. Leave a space for the eye, and around we come. Okay, so we've got 3 dinosaur head shapes, and hooray, they're on camera, so that's fantastic. I need to go back and actually add some eyes. So what I sometimes do is I sometimes add small eyes, but I kind of think that that's not really that interesting. I like adding big bullfrog eyes to my dinosaurs. I don't know why. Makes them look funnier, and I often do things because they look funny. So this eye will be on this side of this particular dinosaur's face, so we can see all of it. And the other eye will be half hidden because from our point of view, it's hiding on the other side of the dinosaur. Now I'm going to make this dinosaur look forward. And what I do is I actually create these little pupils that are forward, kind of pointing to the front. Okay. And what about this dinosaur? I might do the eye that's on this side, and then I have to repeat that. And maybe I'm going to make him look directly at us. Why is he looking at us? maybe someone stole his breakfast. I hope you guys didn't do that, because that would make one angry dinosaur. We'll come back to him. Okay, how about we do the third one? Another eye. Oops, made that one too big, but doesn't matter. Mistakes are absolutely fine. I'm going to actually make this little guy look down. Okay, now we've got 3 dinosaurs, and I actually think that they are showing us different emotions, because can you see that this guy already has a bit of a smile on his face? So I reckon he's a happy dinosaur. So I'm going to make that smile bigger, and if we drew a human, we always draw smile lines like that. Well, I'm doing the same on the dinosaur, and I'm giving him a bit of a dimple. That kind of just makes him look even happier. And if you make a happy person, your eyebrows tend to be exactly in a neutral place. You don't really make a lot of changes. So I'm going to do that with his eyebrows. Just some eyebrows up the top. Make them happy. So he looks like a happy guy, and if I wanted to, I could increase that happy by opening his mouth up. Okay, what about if we made a dinosaur that wasn't so happy? Okay, this guy, hey, remember, someone stole his breakfast. So I think he's going to be a bit cranky. So why don't we add a few angry lines to make a mouth? So an angry mouth, if you think about human, I'm assuming everybody watching today is humanoid. So you get what I mean when we talk about drawing a human. If I want to make them angry, I kind of use an angry mouth, but I also can change eyebrows, almost like a broken up V. So I need to do the same for this dinosaur. Now I'm going to use some angles. Angles are things like sharp, spiky kind of angles with my drawing. Notice the mouth I drew. This one over here, happy guy, it's rounded. Even the smile, just made him a bigger smile. Whereas this guy, everything is angles and sharp, because sharp things actually express angry emotions as well. I'll come back to those angles. Now, did you notice I had to make the eyebrows like that V? So I'm going to do that. And now he's looking pretty angry. I want to come back to these shapes as well. So one trick that illustrators use is they layer information on the page. And so if I actually gave him spikes that are really long and sharp and angular, that kind of adds even more emotion. So he looks like he's often a bit of an angry kind of guy. Really shouldn't have stolen that breakfast. We're in trouble, guys. Okay, maybe a big one up the front. Okay, and this guy over here, he's looking pretty sad. Okay, and sad emotion in people, what we do is we give them a sad face, but they also have eyebrows that are sort of at the side. Okay, so I'm going to make his mouth go even sadder. Notice it's not spiky like the angry guy, but it's rounded. And I'm going to put his eyebrows at the side. Okay, so we have here a bit of a sad old dinosaur. He's got a bit of a red nose. Okay, so this guy, he gets to have these spikes here. What are they called? Spikes, fins, I don't know. I have no idea. But because he's happy, I'm going to use rounded shapes. And that's the interesting thing, is that in Illustrator, if they were to put this dinosaur in a forest, they might use forest leaves that are really rounded. Whereas if they put this dinosaur in a forest, they might use spiky forest in order to, again, layer that emotion. So we've got rounded actually makes us feel safe and warm and cozy. So we use that when we want to suggest happy and safe. And spiky things, like spiky other things in the picture, which could be his food, or it could be plants, or it could be his feet, they all layer up to make us think, oh, this is a big emotion that is an angry emotion. Okay, so we now have 3 dinosaurs. Why don't we actually think about dinosaur bodies? So let's think about what sort of bodies a dinosaur might have. So a dinosaur might be one that swims through the ocean. So in which case it would have a body that would have fins. So if I like doing very rounded shapes. Not quite sure why. I think it may be, maybe it's funnier. I'm not quite sure why. So long tail, kind of looking a little bit like a teapot at the moment. And then up that way. Oops, got a bit of a smear there. But hey, that's a mistake, and mistakes are always interesting. So that would be the shape of a dinosaur that swims in the ocean. But what about one that lives on the land? I tend to do a shape that again is a bit rounded. And for me, feet are always with spiky toes. So I always seem to give them 3 toes. I have no idea if dinosaurs have 3 toes or not. I think what it is maybe that's how I do chickens' feet. And chickens and dinosaurs, you know how they're kind of connected in some way. So maybe that's why I do it. But definitely spiky feet. I think I give them a little back toe, almost like a thumb and finger type thing. Not sure why. Go up in a nice big long tail, and then up we come. Now, of course, we need to do arms on this guy. And, you know, the typical dinosaur has pretty short arms when they're upright like this. So I'm going to do an arm out. And then I do those 3 claws again. Probably should do a little thumb. Now, if you want a dinosaur with a bit of attitude, you can kind of put his arm on his waist, I guess, sort of to show a little bit of attitude. And again, 1, 2, 3, and up we go. So that's 2 different types of bodies. So why don't you have a bit of a play, have a think about what kind of dinosaur you want to do, and play around with head shapes and body shapes. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to redraw one dinosaur. It'll be a surprise as to what combination I choose, and we will colour it in together. So I redrew up our angry guy with the body that belongs on land. So what we're going to do now is we're going to colour it in. So we're going to use materials that you might have at home. I have a fancy prancy texture and called a Copic, and they're really expensive, and people buy them because they don't show stripes or lines, but you can get cheaper versions of Copic in different brands, but an ordinary texture will do just as well, and a pencil. And I'm also going to be using this black pen to do some shadow lines. It's also really good to add a bit more texture. So I've already added a few scales, which is always good to add a bit of texture. Kind of makes you look like you are a artist who knows what they're doing when you add shadows and when you add a bit of texture. So what do we mean by shadows? Shadows are, if you sort of think about an object, it will always have a shadow depending on where the light is. So if it's sunshine, it'll have a certain type of shadow that's going away from the sun. So just for our purposes, just in camera, I'll just draw the sun here just to remind us. So if the sun's shining up here, then it means that the light's coming in this direction, which means that anything that is underneath, away from the sun, will actually have a bit of shadow. So that would mean that this would get a lot of sunshine, so we need to make sure that's nice and bright, but this part of his nose would be in shadow. So just trying to add a bit of shadow, and actually to make it a little bit more interesting, it's actually better to add a bit of variety in your lines. Okay, this part of his mouth would definitely all be in shadow. And probably this part of his neck, because it'd be his nose would bring a bit of shadow there. So it's all looking a bit messy at this stage, but keep going. I'll let you into a secret. There's a stage in your drawing where you will think, oh, this is the worst. The worst. Why on earth am I doing this? I am the worst illustrator and this is the worst picture I've ever done. And let me just say that it's a absolutely normal stage. Everyone feels it. And I'm about there right now. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh, this is the worst picture I've ever done. And I'm on camera and people are going to be looking at this. Oh, but I've realised that it's a normal stage and I just need to feel the feelings and just keep going on. And what you'll realise is you don't really know what an illustration is going to be like, good or is it going to be bad, until you get to the end. Okay, I'm going to turn off the camera now because you really don't want to watch me put shadows over all of this. But if you have a look at your illustrations and anywhere where you think there might be shadow, just add some lines and I'll meet you when we're ready to colour. Okay, so I've added in most of the shadow lines. There's probably more to go. This tail looks enormous to me now. Doesn't matter. Keep going. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some pencil in, and it's going to look really bad because I'm going to be quite rough. But what I'm trying to do is keep mostly to the shadow. So I'm going to be doing a lot of colouring, mostly trying to keep to the shadow areas, and I'm going to leave these bits where they get the sunlight. I'm going to try and be either very light or not show any colour at all. And there is kind of a reason for that, but you'll figure it out by the end if you don't know what I'm doing now. So it's going to be a pretty rough colour. Okay. This is going to be underneath the Copic markers. So this is more in shadow. So I need to do all of this. I'm probably going to go underneath. Try and keep that layer pretty even. Actually, I just chose green. I don't know why I chose green. I mean, dinosaurs can be any colour. The interesting thing about dinosaurs is we don't really know, I think, the colour of their skin. Actually, I should have left that because that's actually getting the sunlight. So that's my first boo-boo. Doesn't matter. We learn from our mistakes. If I was to do this dinosaur again, I would have learnt that. You know what, I'm going to add a bit of lightness in the middle of his tummy. Catches light there. Someone told me that you shouldn't worry about failing, which is very different to how I was taught about drawing. Drawing when I was learning was all about right and wrong and doing it well and failing. And you know what? It meant that most of the people in my age group, we actually all gave up because we kind of thought we're no good. But I think you guys are actually having a really fabulous opportunities to learn, because what people are kind of saying to you now is fail and fail again. And if you keep failing enough times, you'll eventually work out what you're doing and you'll develop your own style. And on the way, the journey is actually more important. The process is much more important than worrying about each end product. So that's my green colour. Now, you would have to agree, there are many people that would colour in much neater than me, so you can see that it's not all about perfect. Now, I've got my Copic here, and Copics are interesting because they've got one side that's a bit brushy and one side that's a bit like a highlighter. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over this dinosaur. So you can sort of see how there's no lines. That's why Copics are so popular with artists. I don't generally use them. Oops, I've got a bit of a boo-boo. Can you see how it's actually, we've got a bit of a smear. Remember to keep away from that highlighted area. Here we go, all the way down. Now what I've learnt already is I should have left more time between me drawing and me putting the Copic marker on. So if I do this again, well, I would have learnt something. So there you go. Anyway, we've got something that's a little bit blurry, a little bit crap. But hey, we're having fun. There we go. Okay, and you're thinking, hey, is she finished? No, she is not. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go over and put a second layer where I need a bit more shadow. And you'll notice that the colours deepen a little bit. It's subtle. Yeah. So I'm not going around the outside. I'm trying to follow those shadows. Oops, oh, went out of the lines. This should give you real confidence. If someone can call herself an illustrator and go out of the lines, surely you must be able to call yourself illustrators. Awesome. Fantastic. Now, let's add a little bit more to this. You know, dinosaurs that I know of are a bit spotty. So, notice what I did there? There was the yucky smear, and I actually covered it with a darker colour. Oop, covered another smear. That's what I mean by don't panic, just keep going. You don't know what an illustration is going to be until the very end. Right now I'm thinking, oh, I've done so much better in the past, but I've learnt just keep on going. Now what's going to happen is these colours will dry and they won't be as extreme as they are right now. Okay, just need to find really light grey. And I'll do the eyes. Ooh. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do red because he's angry, remember? We stole his breakfast. Such bad people that we are. So I'm going to do some red on his spines. Trying really hard to keep in the lines. Maybe I'll use the pointy end. So that's a bit better, but a bit more tricky to do. So doesn't that red make him look even more angry? See that pointing finger? I gave him that so he can actually tell us off. Okay, now red I think is a bit boring. I like adding a bit more difference to that. So one of the things I like is not fire engine red, which is what this is, but more a kind of scarlet red, which is kind of like an orange red. And I've found that if you add a bit of pink, now go with me right now because you're probably not believing me at all. And then if you add a bit of orange, it kind of really adds something. So a much more interesting red. Okay, and there we have it. I'm probably going to add another layer of green. I can't help but fiddle faddle because I feel like it's still just a little bit not there. Cover up that white, but it should be the lightest bit of it. It almost looks like he's got frog skin, doesn't he? So, with your own textures, you probably can't go over it so many times, but that's where we have a play and explore. And what's really fantastic is if you work out what your materials at home can and can't do, and then you work out your own rules. So your rule might be, I can't do 2 layers or more. I can only do 1 layer. Or you might be like me and you can do a few. Okay, can you see how that stayed lighter? That didn't really stay lighter, which is interesting. I think because my Copic picked up some of the black. I can make it look lighter by darkening up the rest. Okay, there we have you. Angry, hungry dinosaur who needs something to eat. Now I just need to put him on a bit of ground. They say this is sort of like grounding your character. And if he is on ground, he definitely needs a bit of a shadow. So I'll just give him just a bit of a shadow there. Okay. Oh, I did that without you seeing, so he's been grounded. Okay then, so I hope you enjoyed that drawing with me. I've loved hanging out with you, so enjoy drawing your dinosaurs. Have fun. See you later. Bye.